Welcome to the Childcare Directors Chair, the podcast for bold educators who are ready to lead, grow, and shake things up in early childhood education. Whether you're a teacher eyeing that lead role, a lead stepping into leadership, or a center owner dreaming big, this is your space to grow with purpose and leave your mark. Hosted by heart-centered leadership coach Erica Sakosio, each episode brings you real talk, actionable tools, and a contagious laugh or two, all designed to help you step into your next level with confidence. So pour your coffee, pop in those earbuds, and take your seat, because your leadership journey starts right now in the Childcare Directors Chair.
In this episode, we're going to explore leadership power of remembering people, listening to their stories, and creating meaningful connection in early childhood education. After a weekend full of laughter and leadership conversations, one phrase kept coming up over and over again. As people were coming from all over the country, Connecticut, Canada, Texas, Florida, New York, New Jersey, New Orleans, people were there. And I have to tell you, it was so funny when I would hear them say, "How did you end up here?" And many of them said, "I'm here because Erica collected me." And honestly, that became the lesson. Great leaders do more than network. They notice people. They remember their stories, their dreams, their fears, their passions, and the moments that matter. Because when people feel remembered, they feel important. In this episode, we're going to dig into why storytelling creates trust, how connection builds culture, and how leaders can begin collecting their own people in intentional and authentic ways. Because leadership is not just about managing programs, it's about creating belonging. Now, I do apologize that my voice sounds like the guy from Dry Eyes commercial. As my media person said, I have no vocal cord ability left. When I tell you, for 4 days, we've been straight out, just talking to hundreds and hundreds of childcare leaders and presenting workshops. We're straight out, and that's okay. Because the cool thing is, on our show, I don't pretend to be perfect, and I'm not polished. So I do apologize for the extremely raspy voice, but I feel like I already missed you guys in the 4 days that I missed that podcast, so I just needed to pop on the mic. Today's conversation is probably one of the most personal leadership lessons that I've shared on the podcast, because it centers around something I genuinely love, not just leadership, but in life, and that's people. Their stories, their energy, what excites them, what lights them up, what makes them feel seen. All weekend at the conference, we kept joking about the same thing. People would introduce themselves, and someone would laugh and say, "I'm here because Erica collected me." And honestly, I love that, because somewhere along the way, I realized I do collect people. Not in a transactional way, not for networking, but intentionality. I remember people. I remember where we met, what they were passionate about, what they were nervous about, what they dreamed about becoming. And the more I thought about this weekend, the more I realized that is leadership. And leadership, especially in early childhood, we spend so much time focused on operations and staffing and schedules and compliance and problem solving, blah, 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 right? We talk about it every day. That we sometimes forget the literally most powerful thing that we can do is offer another person recognition. Not just knowing someone's name, but remembering who they are. There is something deeply powerful about saying that. Something like, "Hey, how did that project go?" Or, "Last time I talked to you, you were writing that book. Are you done with those chapters? I can't wait to read them." Or, "How's your daughter doing?" So many people ask me about my grandbabies, and I love you for that. I love that you knew that about me. You mentioned wanting to grow into leadership. How's that feeling right now? When you remember someone's story, they feel important, not in a performative way, but just truly important. And in early childhood education, where so many educators feel exhausted, unseen, undervalued, that matters so deeply. People remember who remembered them. And honestly, that is one of the purest forms of leadership out there. One thing I noticed over and over again at the conference was this: speakers people connected with were the ones that shared the stories, not the polished information, not just leadership strategies, but the stories. Like Jamie sharing how her center burnt down over a holiday weekend and she didn't know about it till Monday. Or even my sister Chris sharing on stage with people. It was her first time on stage hosting, and she was a little bit nervous, but she was going to work through it because she felt confident because the speakers in the room had instilled with her that it was okay to not be perfect. Yes, every speaking expert will tell you storytelling matters. And they're right. Absolutely, they're right. But storytelling works for a deeper reason because people see themselves inside the stories. Stories create emotion, they create relatability, and they create connection. Nobody remembers every bullet point from a presentation, so please don't stress yourself out with all those slides. Most of us don't use them anyway. But they do remember the story about the teacher who almost quit, or that childcare director who almost died on the playground, a director who struggled with confidence, the moment someone felt unseen and finally found their voice. That's what makes people stay. And that's what people want to hear about because these stories make leadership human. Early childhood leadership, human connection matters more than polished perfection ever will. I mean, if we learned anything from Holly, right, who is her truest of selves, and she shared about her trauma that she had when she was younger and how that created who she is today, and how she takes that lesson out there and writes books about trauma-informed practices. So, yeah, the stories matter. Before I go on, I do want to say a huge thank you to our sponsors at Harmony Books. Harmony Books is a local Rhode Island, Mass, Connecticut bookkeeping company. They were so wonderful to sponsor our snacks on Thursday and Friday. And when I tell you those brownies and cookies were a killer, they definitely were. They were the talk of the afternoon. That 3 o'clock slump when you need a little energy. Well, Harmony Books came to the rescue. I'm going to leave their link below if you're looking for some support around your finances, around your bookkeeping. Go check them out. So let's get back to it. One of the things I really want leaders to understand is this: collecting people is not something you are simply born knowing how to do. It is something you intentionally practice. And honestly, in a world where everyone is rushing around, we're distracted, we're multitasking and moving into the next thing, and we all do it, right? I'm already thinking in my head, what are the next 25 projects I'm going to do 3 days after a conference and no voice? We're all guilty of it. But I also make sure I take the time to reflect. And being someone who truly notices people has become real. It's not something everybody does. That's exactly why it matters so much. Because leadership is not built through those titles alone. It's built through those relationships. So how do you start collecting your own people? Well, first, be genuinely curious about others. Not for networking curiosity, not for transaction curiosity, but for human connection curiosity. Ask questions beyond someone's role or title. Ask them, what brought you into early childhood education? Or what part of this work lights you up? What are you passionate about? Who are you hoping to grow into? Most people are waiting for someone to care enough to ask. Secondly, pay attention to the details. The best leaders are observant. They remember where they met someone, they remember the stories someone shared, and they remembered what someone was excited about or nervous about months later. And listen, you don't need to be perfect, and you don't have to have a perfect memory. God knows I don't. Write things down if you need to. Save names in your phone, make notes after conferences or conversations. Because when you circle back later and say, hey, how did that opportunity work out for you? Or mentioning, wanting to step into leadership and asking them, how's that going? People feel valued. And those valued people, they stay connected. Third, connect people to each other. This is one of the most powerful leadership habits that you can build. When you meet someone amazing, introduce them to another person who shares a similar passion, goal, or challenge. I introduced so many of my friends to so many of my other friends that didn't know each other. And that's how communities grow. And I have to tell you, I'm sorry, I'm going to brag for a minute. I have one of the best communities out there. These people are so genuine and so honest and so loving. And that's how leadership circles grow. I do not need to be the top dog in the circle. That's why it's a circle and not a pyramid. And honestly, that's how influence grows too. Not through collecting contacts with 1,000 business cards or collecting followers, but through meaningful relationships. And honestly, this connects directly to leadership and early childhood education. Because people do not follow leaders simply because they have knowledge. People follow leaders because they feel seen by them. And when educators feel personally known, not just as professionals or professionally managed, they trust you differently. They engage with you differently, and they collaborate differently. Connection creates culture, guys. And culture is one of the greatest responsibilities we carry as leaders. So maybe collecting people is really more about collecting and creating belonging. Maybe it's all about becoming the kind of leader who notices people deeply enough that they never feel invisible in your presence. I'm going to say that again. Maybe it's about becoming the kind of leader who notices people deeply enough that they never, ever feel invisible in your presence. And in today's world, that kind of leadership is so powerful. So maybe leadership is not just about building those programs. Maybe it is about collecting people along the way, not for numbers, not for status, but for connection. Because every person has a story. Every educator has a reason they started. And every leader has a moment that shaped them. And when we remember those stories, people feel valued. They feel seen and important. And honestly, that might be one of the greatest leadership gifts we can offer. So thank you for spending time with me today on the Childcare Directors Chair. If you're listening today, I want you to remember this. Your story matters too. So please share it with me. Text the show. I'd love to connect. And guess what? I think we're getting into a season of getting some guests back on the show. And maybe that guest might be you. So text the show, stay in touch, hit me in the DMs, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever you find me. I want to connect. I want to know you. I want to know your story. Till tomorrow, have a great day.